Good evening. I would like to call the February 12th, 2013 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Present.
Council members Bagley.
Here.
Finley. Here. Levison. Here. Samori.
Here.
Santos.
Here.
Witt. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
All right, let's stand for Pledge of Allegiance. The Boy Scout troop number 166 will lead us. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak at first call public invited to be heard will need to add his or her name to the list outside. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing items this evening or at the final call public invited to be heard on any of the items at the end of the meeting. Councilmember Levison.
I'm just waiting for the next item.
Okay. Next item is approval of the minutes.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move the approval of the January 12th, 2013 minutes as they are presented to us this evening. Second.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. We now have the meetings from January 8th. Are there any corrections or additions to make from that meeting? Or is that,
22nd.
The 22nd, excuse me. Any, Councilmember Levison?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move the to accept the approve the January 22nd, 2013 minutes as presented.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Valerie, are there any agenda revisions or submissions of documents?
No, Mayor Coombs, there aren't.
Okay. Is there a report from the city manager?
No, sir.
All right. The first person on the list is Bob Norris. Please come down and state your name and address for the record.
I am Bob Norris. I need to be trained. I'm Bob Norris. I live at 532 Ryder Ridge Drive here in Longmont, as I have for the last several years. I'm here to talk to you tonight about an issue that I think is very important to the city of Longmont, something that goes on that has reduced and continues to reduce some of our tax collections because of a practice that some employers, but not all employers, do, and that is the failure to pay their employees everything they owe them. To me, that's thievery, but this can take place in terms of not paying minimum wages, failing to pay time and a half for overtime, forcing workers to work off the clock, withholding workers' final paychecks. It happens a lot with H-2A visa workers, withholding earned tips from restaurant workers, and then sometimes complete not payment of the laborers. This is a big problem. According to the study that was done, various cities, 50% of restaurants, 74% of daycare centers, 50% of nursing homes, 38% of hotels and motels in various cities have had that percentage of their employees not being paid. It's an expensive thing. It's estimated that about $19 billion in wages are not paid properly in this country every year. The state of New York estimate that they lose $427 million a year in taxes. I have no way of figuring out what it's cost indirectly this city of Longmont. The problem is, even though there are some things that would appear to maybe help employees get their pay, in fact, it almost never works. What does work sometimes is either Carmen or Marta calls the employer and they agree to pay, but past that, it's really very difficult. There's a bill introduced. It'll be in committee on February 21st in the Judicial Committee of the House. It's being introduced by Jonathan Singer, we all know. And the components of it have been put together working with the U.S. Department of Labor, CDLE, Stan Garnett at the DA's office. And it has various components. One of the components is to create a crime. Could be a felony or a misdemeanor, depending on how much money don't pay. Stan tells me he thinks if a few people are convicted, then other people will be really careful because they could lose their business license. So it's about preventing it, not trying to go and punish people. There's a lot of technical things in the bill, including definition of employer, clarifies who's really responsible, has some modifications about when they can pay. It has some protection of employers who can't pay. They don't have the money. They're not going to get charged for the felony or a misdemeanor. And there's a lot of things around to help CDL. The fines will go to CDL, not to the general fund. So anyway, I would think you would talk about that. I'll leave the information, and then maybe next week we could think about whether we support it. Thank you.
You just leave the information with Valerie.
Mayor Coombs, your first item on the agenda is second reading ordinance 2013-04, a bill for an ordinance establishing a moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, or approval of any permit, license, or plan related to or the establishment or operation of any business that invites, accommodates, or permits possession or use of marijuana under the authority of Article 18, Section 16 of the Colorado Consortium. And I believe Ben Ortiz is here, but doesn't have a formal presentation, but if you have questions, he can address those.
Okay. Are there any questions from council members before I open this up for a public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll open this for public hearing. Is there anyone signed up? I guess there's no one actually signed up, but is there anybody in the public that'd like to speak on this item? I guess seeing no one, I'll close public hearing. Councilmember Samori.
I would move that we, what, I just passed it. I would move that we approve the moratorium as stated. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, let's vote.
I just passed it.
Okay, that passes 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is the consent agenda. Item 9A is ordinance 2013-05, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2013. This public hearing is second reading scheduled for February 26th. 9B is ordinance 2013-06, bill for an ordinance amending the 2013-2017 capital improvement program. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for February 26th. Item 9C is resolution 2013-09, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city, the Regional Transportation District, the Colorado Department of Transportation, and Northwest Area Corridor stakeholders for a memorandum of understanding regarding the Northwest Area Mobility Study. Item 9D is resolution 2013-10, approving a grant from the Colorado Department of Transportation for the 2013 High Visibility Enforcement Campaign. And item 9E is resolution 2013-11, approving an agreement with the City of Colorado Springs for an Internet Crimes Against Children grant award. And staff would like to pull item 9C for a brief presentation.
Okay. Councilmember Witt.
I'd like to move the consent agenda minus 9C.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Levison.
Yes, Mayor. Before we vote on the consent agenda, I just wanted to know, are any of these grants federal grants? Because the conversation I was in on last week on the webinar about sequestration, I just want to know whether or not we're going to plan to accept a grant that may not come through. And I couldn't readily tell from the information in the packet.
In discussing these issues with Mike, just in grants in general, we do plan to accept them, but we also know that the nature of receiving these grants, and I don't know specific on these two. These are annual grants that we're used to accepting. But we also know that just the nature of what we're having to deal with today is that if they don't come through, then we know we have to make the operational adjustments accordingly. So we're really moving forward with that mindset.
Okay. Shall we vote? Okay, that passes 7-0.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Phil Greenwald, Transportation Planner with the Economic Development Department. Tonight I have a presentation for you, a quick one on the consent item that's been removed. And it's ready to go on the presentation piece there. This is about the Northwest Mobility, or Northwest Area Mobility Study, the NAM study is the short name of that. We're talking about a memorandum of understanding, and just to go over some items. Basically, what is a memorandum of understanding? It's technically basically a formal alternative to a gentleman's agreement between two parties. It's a common line of action between two or more parties as well, so if there's a commonality of folks trying to reach a decision, this is one way to get that done as a memorandum of understanding. Why the Northwest Area Mobility Study, MOU? Basically, as you know, we've done other studies with this in this corridor, and we were not able to, as a corridor, come to agreement on what needed to be done as far as transportation-related ideas. So there was different folks who wanted bus rapid transit, the BRT. Other folks wanted rail. We were in that camp, obviously, and so there was some disagreement. We couldn't come to a common agreement within the corridor. So RTD has asked that we work together and get that commitment from the stakeholders in this study, and this is one way to do that as well, the MOU. Also, as you probably read in the newspaper earlier today, we were not really excited, and neither was anyone from the corridor excited about spending money on a study, an additional study, and basically told RTD, no, that's not going to happen. And so this is one way to tie us together and get to some common agreements and some understandings that way as well. There are ideas that this determined a clear process of how the decisions are made in the study, so that's why they want to pull this together at this time. The goals of the Northwest Area Mobility Study are to create that prioritized list of improvements for the Northwest area. So we're really talking about coming together and trying to figure out what needs to happen in this area. We talked about the overall support of RTD, CDOT, and the local stakeholders as part of the whole process here, and including those, getting to some of those base year assumptions and operations and maintenance cost estimates. So by the end of the study, they should have a pretty good understanding of how much every alternative should cost and be able to put that together for us fairly clearly. They'll also do a fatal flaw analysis of technical, financial, and environmental issues. That's just kind of a basic parameter of the study to make sure we're not heading down a road that will never be feasible. They'll also take these results from the study and work them into their annual program evaluation, which they do every year. And so that's really the basis of the timing, is to get this done by the end of this year so they can be ready to roll for the APE or the APE study for next year, 2014. Other points to consider, obviously changing anything in fast tracks requires that they go back to the voters, and you've been very adamant as a council, and it's been very clear to RTD that anything moves forward, it moves forward separate from any kind of tax issues. So if we need to vote on changing fast tracks, that is separate from any kind of taxing issue. And then also, obviously, prior to any construction, RTD is required to conduct additional environmental analysis and engineering. Even though we have a North I-25 EIS, there's some likelihood that might change, and they might have to reevaluate some of the environmental work, but a lot of it's been done already, so that's good news. Your options tonight are basically to authorize the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the city and participate in the study. If you choose to not authorize the mayor to sign on to the MOU, it does put us in a bit of a detriment with the rest of the corridor, as they've all signed on, and we'd be the one jurisdiction kind of left out of some of the processes of that. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions from council? Oh, thank you, Phil. Doesn't look like we have any questions. Councilmember Witt.
I'd like to move 9E.
9C.
9C. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
I did need to mention one item before you
Sure.
vote, is that there will be a policy committee for the study. And so one of you or two of you will be asked to participate in that study. So think about that for maybe a future reference.
Okay. Let's vote. Okay, Phil, looks like Longmont's on board. Passes 7-0. Wow. So I guess we're general business.
Mayor Coombs, your general business item is a water supply and drought management information update, and Dale Maker will introduce this.
Tough name. Mayor Combs and members of council, I'm Dale Rademacher, Director of Public Works and Natural Resources. Tonight, staff is here to really just give you a briefing and an update regarding the city's water supply and the whole drought issue that in spite of what you may think of what you've seen with all the snow and the storms and all the press and hype on that, unfortunately, we're still not out of this drought by a long shot. So part of our drought management efforts are to continually monitor it and do exactly what we're doing tonight, educate and talk with our council and our customers about the situation we're in so that people, A, understand it, and B, understand what their role is and what they can do to help. And so tonight, we're going to sort of do in two parts. Ken Houston, our Water Resources Administrator, will give a briefing on everything from where our storage stands with our reservoirs and snowpack and those kinds of things. Go over some of the attributes of the drought plan, so we all sort of understand what that means. And then Bill Powell is going to come up and talk a little bit about the communication plan that we are putting together and going to be launching that both internal to Longmont as well as regionally. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ken, and he can go through his stuff.
Thank you, Dale. Mayor and members of council, Ken Houston, I'm a Water Resources Administrator. Appreciate the time on the agenda tonight. Really what we wanted to do was continue to update not only the City Council, but through the opportunity to be here tonight, also our citizens on where we are with our water supply. You'll begin hearing in the news media over the next couple of months different cities having different levels of concern about drought. Each city has a different water supply. Each water basin is going to yield a little bit different, so you have to look at ours specifically. But we wanted to kind of assure the citizens that we do have water supply this year and where we're at. So I'll start out with a picture tonight of Ralph Price Reservoir. This was actually taken today, so you can see we're fairly full. We're down just a couple thousand acre feet is all, so we've been trying to manage that reservoir really close this year with not only the drought conditions we had last year, but as well as this year. This slide really shows you the kind of the reason we're up here tonight and where we're at. As you can see, the entire middle section of the United States is either in an extreme drought or an exceptional drought, almost as large an area and severe drought as over the entire central and western part of the United States that we've ever seen. The only two areas really don't have a fairly severe drought is the extreme northwest and then the northeast, and those lucky guys, that was before it snowed. So those lucky guys up there have plenty of moisture, but here in the middle section we're struggling. In fact, to look at in your packet we had the snow pack at the time it was put together, but we've put in here today's snow pack. And if you look, this is the South Platte Basin, and the dark heavy line is this year's snowpack. So you can see we're about the middle of February here, and it's very low, but it has been climbing. You may recall last time we were in here was the middle of December, and you can see we have gained quite a bit since then. Actually climbed up a little bit. In December, we were actually at the lowest point we'd ever had a recorded snowpack for December in the South Platte. We're now a little above that. In fact, we're pretty much the second line up, the red line, is 2002, that drought year, and so we're tracking pretty close to what we did in 2002 for the South Platte. Still very dry, still an issue of concern, but every time we even get a little snowstorm, that really helps. The next graph is the Colorado River, and as you recall, we get about 1/3 of our water supply from the west slope through the Colorado Big Thompson and Windy Gap diversion projects. Ultimately ends up in Carter Lake and delivered to us. The Colorado River is currently setting all-time record low snowpacks. Again, you can see the storms we have been having. It certainly has helped, but it's still going to take quite a bit to get us up there. The biggest concern about this is really not for this year, because the Colorado Big Thompson project, which we get our West Slope water, has water in storage for this year. That's the beauty of storage, and has already allocated water to us for this year. This snowpack runoff will really accrue this summer and will be what will be allocated to us next year. And so that's one of the reasons we use a 2-year planning horizon for our water supply as opposed to a 1-year planning horizon. Ordering in a little closer to our specific water supply, our Button Rock storage is really the workhorse, especially in the winter for Longmont. That's our big bucket above Longmont that we get. About 2/3 of our water supply comes through there. We don't actually take 2/3 of it out of there, but a good portion of our water comes through. This graph shows the bottom line is, the brown line is the lowest single year track we've had. That was in 1989, much below where we are now. If you look, the green line is kind of the average for the last 45 years since we've first filled Button Rock. And then the red line at the very top is this year's line. So you can see we've been trying to be very frugal with Ralph Price Reservoir, and sitting here in the middle of February at about 14,000 acre feet, that's actually about 1,000 acre feet above what we normally would be. So we're happy with that, watching it closely. As you look out to projections later in the year into June, July, and August, we're not projecting to completely fill. That's primarily because of the low snowpack. A lot of what we would fill Ralph Price with, Button Rock with, is changed ditch shares, and a lot of those won't yield as well as they would during a normal year. So we're being very conservative on that projection. We certainly will do everything we can to fill it even more, but at any rate, that gives us certainly the knowledge that next year we'll have a good winter water supply in Button Rock, if that's where we're sitting. Just a reminder that annually, every May, City Council reviews and approves a water supply and drought management plan. That's on the web for any of the citizens who wish to look at that. The one thing I did want to pull out of that plan, and just as a reminder, are the water conservation levels that we look at and how we manage our water supply. We are always in what we call a sustainable water conservation level, and that occurs anytime we're at 135% of demand to supply ratio or greater. That is generally where we're at most of the time. The first level we go to is a level 1 drought response. That's when we have between 120 and 135% of supply to demand. And that results in a mandatory 10% savings on municipal use and a strong campaign to encourage a 10% savings on our customers. And then a level 2 drought response is where you really get attention. It's when we have a water supply between 105 and 120% of demand. At that point, we implement actions geared towards having a 10% savings for all water users, including mandatory watering restrictions. And then finally, level 3 is if we go below that, and we would increase the amounts. So what we wanted to do was show you, this is what we call Table A in our drought plan, and we update this each time we do an update, both monthly to Water Board and Council. The 3 lines on the right side are our projections for 2013, 14, and 15. We look at the two-year demand, 2013 and 2014, to set that drought conservation level. As you can see, we're projecting about 25,000 acre feet of supply for both 2013 and 2014, and about 18,000 acre feet of demand. So that puts us, the very bottom line, you can see in yellow, it puts us 136 and 137%. So that we're getting close to that level 1 drought. So whenever we start getting this close, we like to start heightening the awareness and bringing up the information for people. Just real quickly, one of the things this is based on, if you look at the very top of the 2013 line there, we have the CBT quota declaration at 60%. Annually, there's an initial declaration, which is done in November. Usually that's set at 50%, and it was this year. So currently we have a 50% CBT quota. The board, Northern Colorado Water Conservancy Board, will set that quota, supplemental quota, in April. And so our projection is it'll be 60%. It's possible they would leave it at 50%, but not likely. It could be higher. They actually have enough in storage right now. They could set it as high as 87%, and that would be all the water. Certainly, the municipalities are encouraging not to do that. Carry some over for next year, and then of course there will be this year's runoff, and so that would be accrued to use next year. So we're using 60%. We feel that conservative. It'll probably be somewhere between 60 and 70%, and we'll certainly encourage it 60 because we will still want that 60 to 70% next year. And then at the very bottom of the supply lines, you'll see a number of 1,000. That's in parentheses. Every year we look at our water supply compared to our projected demands, and if there is a surplus water, we identify that in the May meeting when we bring the next year's drought plan, and that water can then be declared surplus for that year's use, and we put it on the rental market for local farmers to use. You'll notice that last year, well, in the last couple of years, it's in the 5,000 to 7,000 acre feet a year range. Because of our conservative projections this year, we've only got that at 1,000 acre feet, so that will affect that program, and I will talk just a little bit later about that, but I wanted to highlight that on our table A. So that's where we're at right now, and we'll certainly continue to monitor snowpack, continue to monitor the water supply, and continue to update council on these issues. One of the things I did want to talk about tonight, though, to give as much kind of forewarning, and we'll actually be coming back to you a little bit later this spring to talk a little more in depth about this, and that's the recreational impacts of drought. It does tend to affect some of our programs, and I'm hoping for more snowpack, so we won't have these impacts, but I certainly want to at least highlight what some of them are. The first one is I wanted to highlight Union Reservoir. This graph is a little bit different than Button Rock. If you'll look, the bottom line, red line's 2013, we're right now, today, we're at about 5,800 acre feet, just a little lower than 6,000. The reservoir, when it's full, is 13,000 acre feet, so we're about a little bit below half full out there right now. One of the concerns we have is that the Union Reservoir won't get in priority to fill a lot this year. We've had years where we've had as low as 500 to 900 acre feet is all that Union was able to store in that particular year. As a result, if you look at the line, the low point is about the 1st of March. We're hoping to start getting a little bit of water in there, but you can see we aren't projecting a lot of fill right now. It really depends. There's quite a bit of fill on some of the senior agricultural reservoirs that have to fill before Union comes in fully into priority. Because it's fairly low on the system, it does get a little return flow, so that's why we're showing some water in there. How that affects it, the first thing we've shown is the boat ramp. As you notice, unless we get much water in there, we're currently below the bottom end of the boat ramp, so there's no ability to launch boats, and we may not get high enough on the boat ramp this year to have it open for boating. That does significantly impact some of the uses out there. There are some uses such as canoes, some small sailboats going, those type of things, when board sailing, those things can hand launch, and but then we're not going to have to look at the safety aspects of whether or not we can get our patrol boats out there, even if you allow those. So there's a lot of those things we're currently looking at right now. The other thing you will notice not on the graph is a line for the swim beach. And we're really looking right now at what is a safe level for that swim beach. You know, initially you'd say, well, you can just chase your sand and your and your pontoons on down further. But one of the concerns we have is we're getting far enough out in the lakeshore now that we're getting into areas where we haven't had an opportunity to clean the shoreline, and so there's broken bottles, rocks, those types of things. So we're going to look at that and bring that information back, a little bit later this spring before the recreational period, so we can have a conversation around that. So that's just one of the things that we wanted to highlight, not to be pessimistic, but just to let all the citizens know there are real impacts for recreation. Another example is if we have to cut back on, say, watering of certain parks, you may not be able to have as many practices, say, because of stress on the turf. Those are the kind of things we certainly look at. One other program we have, and I mentioned it briefly, was our surplus water rental. There's really a number of categories of water rental that we do if we have excess water beyond our demand. The first one we do is we have a long-standing agreement with the St. Vrain School District where we lease water for irrigation of school facilities. That's a long-term agreement. That's kind of our first area that we supply surplus water to. One of the things we've done is work with the school district over the years to identify especially critical sports fields. And one of the things we do for recreation is even if we cut back on watering, we try not to cut back. The last thing we'd cut back with is critical sports fields. That's really a safety issue. If you have a football field or a soccer field or something like that where you don't water it, then it gets very hard and you increase the injuries of our youth, and we certainly don't want that. So that's one of the things we work hard at to make sure we maintain. But we have that lease back. The second thing we have is what's called the historical lease back, and that's a little bit different than the surplus water rental in that the historical lease back is water that we lease back to properties that have annexed. They've dedicated the water to us, but they haven't developed, so they don't have a demand, and we want to keep those fields irrigated so they look nice. This is a picture of the east side of Union Reservoir looking towards Longmont. You can see that looks much nicer than if it were, bare field. And so we have that in code, and the second thing we do is lease back to those historical water users. And then the third category is the surplus water that we put on the market, and it's leased to agricultural producers outside the LPA, but in the St. Vrain Valley. So those are some of the programs that we do need. We'll probably make a decision sooner than later this spring, because especially the farmers, they need to know whether they're going to be planting, barley or wheat earlier, because they can't plant, corn or something later. So those are some of the programs, but cutting back from 7,000 to 1,000 is definitely going to impact that surplus water rental program. And that's one of the things we're trying to get out right now, that even if we start getting some better snowpack, some moisture, it would take a huge, a 2003 type 30-inch snowstorm before we'd get back to where we had enough water to really meet those demands. So just trying to get the word out and let people know that. And finally, I'll let Bill Powell come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about our public information efforts as we go forward.
Can we ask Sarah would like to ask you a quick question first.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for that great presentation. Would the price of any water that we lease go up in value? Or does that not equate when water is scarce, the price of leased water goes higher? And, would the farmers not want to lease the water if it gets to be too expensive?
That, Councilman Evison, yes, that is absolutely true. We set it at what is called the current agricultural lease. A good example is before the 2002 drought, for years and years, most agricultural surplus water was going for the $12 to $16 an acre foot range. That year, almost immediately, it jumped up to $35. That was kind of the going rate, $35 an acre foot, until we got further into later in 2002, and it went up to like $300 an acre foot. That was because it wasn't being leased by farmers; it was being leased by people who needed to use it for other reasons. And so the answer is absolutely correct. We will look at if any water were released, then you would look at the current market, and it's pretty high right now.
If I could add to that too, the two things for the city. What we don't ever try to do is raise our price when somebody's down, when it's tough out there, especially for the farmers. So I don't think we would try to do that. But what Ken's talking about in 2002, and it could very well happen this year, is municipalities, other cities actually go out on the rental market, and they will pay a much higher price because, frankly, they have to keep water to their taps. And so, frankly, the farmer will get priced out of that market. But typically at that point in the season, they know it. They either the crop is already gone, and hopefully they had insurance on it, or they didn't plant. They planted grains as opposed to sugar beets or something. So I didn't want the public to think that we would raise our price just because it was a drought. And I don't know if that's what you were asking, Councilman.
Well, the thing is, the water becomes, I didn't know if there was a direct relationship between when the water is scarce, the price goes up, and people that I think that there's a empathy for our local farmers, for example, to have the public view of land that we lease to somebody and have water to it, or have just a dry field that's going to start growing Canada thistle. Given the two choices, I think people would err on the side of the farmer. But when would we set those new prices for the lease rate? Does the market fluctuate like, pork futures or, whatever, that it's become speculative? And do we look at those price points at certain watershed moments?
And Ken, you can jump in on this with me, but typically that price doesn't fluctuate greatly. Any given year it may go up $1 or $2. What we try to do is recoup our cost, and so whatever we're paying for our assessments back to Northern, we try to get those back out. We do that cooperatively with the St. Vrain Left-Hand Water Conservancy District. This year, what I'm hearing out there is that very few, if any, cities are going to actually be leasing. So there may not be a market per se for the rental of ag water from municipalities. If there's a market at all, you could actually see a market turn around wherein the farmer is turning around and leasing his CBT to a city. And that is what happened in 2002, because they realized I have some water, I don't have enough to grow a crop, but a city is willing to pay a lot more than I can otherwise get a return on it. So sometimes it actually flips around, and they're pretty sharp about that. So they'll look at that market. But I don't know if Ken's hearing anything else on rental this year.
Yeah, no, we really aren't. In fact, we're hearing most of the northern cities aren't going to rent any water. Although honestly, a couple of the cities on the Poudre aren't renting because of the fire last summer, which while they had their water rights in the Poudre, they had extensive runoff from the fire and a lot of taste and odor problems. So they had to increase their CBT use, and so that pretty much took them out of the market. And so we have other uses for that water. Would be really surprised if it got into that agricultural market this year.
So Ken, if we had like 2 15-inch pretty heavy snowstorms late in the spring, we would be out of the back to normal kind of thing, roughly?
It's it's an interesting process when that happens. Our west slope water supply, which is Colorado River, almost never gets kind of the big, huge upslope dumps that we can on the Front Range here. It also peaks about 2 weeks earlier, and so generally when we get a big upslope, generally when it goes those big storms, it's an upslope. It'll get us here and hopefully get us in our native basin, but rarely gets on over the divide. And so even some big storms, if we get some big winter storms coming through, which will tend to get the mountains, that'll certainly help them. If we get a big east slope, upslope, that'll certainly help our native basin. But it really takes both. And so it's really hard. But yeah, absolutely, the more we get, the better. But it's when you're this far behind, it's even it takes even the blizzard of 2003. Everybody remembers the blizzard. It was like 30 inches. That year, the snowpack that we got, that was less than half the snowpack we got from the day that storm started till the end of April. What really helped us that year was the month of April, and we got a whole bunch of little storms all the way through the month of April. And so the snowpack increase wasn't from, even though it was in places here on the Front Range, I know some people had 5 feet of snow. That certainly helped, but of course it melts quickly too. But really it was both those things. It was so we need those 15 inches and a bunch of these little ones like we're getting, and that really is what it takes to get out of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. And from it's my understanding, the projections of those storms for the rest of the year aren't very good.
Councilmember Santos, that is correct. The latest NOAA forecasts are still calling for average to below average for the next 2 months,
right.
2 to 3 months. So they're.
My wife works at the Left-Hand Water District, and so I've heard that they're under the same gun that the city is that the modeling the weather forecasting they've seen is just like ours. Then I just hope everyone just cross your fingers, cross your toes for some. Hopefully we get some wet weather here for the next several months.
Do.
Thank
you. Good evening, Mayor Coombs, members of council, Bill Powell, Customer Service and Marketing Manager for Public Works and Natural Resources. And tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about our public information plan for this water situation. First, Ken touched on this briefly, but everyone may have the same drought, but water supplies and needs vary with every agency. So what I'm trying to say is you might see another city, another water agency going into a type of drought situation that Longmont does not have. We've got a very different water supply, and we need to keep that in mind. We are working with 8 other agencies here in the Boulder and Broomfield County area. We're trying to get a regional effort for water conservation going. We're working with Boulder, Lafayette, Louisville, Superior, Erie, Boulder County, Broomfield County, and Left-Hand Water District. And we're trying to come, this is a draft of our proposed summer watering guidelines. We'll be meeting again in early March to try and get this nailed down a little bit further. In addition to the 9 agencies that I just mentioned, there are 6 others in the northern metro area that are also working on a similar plan, and we hope to have a unified message going out to the entire North Denver area. Those other northern Denver suburbs are Arvada, Federal Heights, North Glen, Thornton, Westminster, and Southern Adams County Water and Sanitation District. So as I said, we're trying to have a consolidated message to the public. The purpose of our plan is basically to fully inform the public as to the status of our water supply in order to clarify their role in our water conservation areas. Additionally, we want to have a plan ready to put into effect should the drought come in. Some of the things that Longmont is considering and will have ready to go, we're going to have a wasting water hotline. This is a phone number that we had during the 2002 drought. That hotline will ring into the Public Works and Natural Resources call center. Our call agents will be able to help with that. If there's questions that go beyond their expertise, then Ken and his staff are available for this. In addition, we'll have things like a Main Street banner, table tents at restaurants asking people, if you'd like a glass of water, please request one, but not to put a glass of water out for every patron. Possibly put magnetic signs on the vehicles encouraging water conservation. We'll have messages in the utility bills. Web page updates, of course. We'll also be hitting the social media, Facebook, Twitter, e-alerts, things like that. We'll probably be placing ads in the Times Call. And we're considering a media campaign if we get to the point, something like a 10% reduction, and we'll be working with the consultant to help us get a brand going on that front. We've also contacted John Clark in Community and Neighborhood Resources, and he said that he could help us get in touch with HOAs so we can go out and educate them on ways to save water. We'll be preparing a council fact sheet because some of you may be getting phone calls and questions. We want you to have the answers. We'll also be working with the St. Vrain School District to target areas of conservation. So they've got a lot of turf areas, and we want to work with them for some proposed savings. There have been some indications at the staff level from several agencies throughout the Denver area that they may go to mandatory watering restrictions early in the spring. Right now, everyone is playing poker. They're trying not to tip their hand. They don't want to alarm their citizens. So getting the straight scoop is somewhat difficult. That's why these regional efforts like the Boulder and Broomfield County are they're a big help to us. Although some local cities have indicated that it's too early to make a call for a drought. They're going to wait and see what their allotment is from the CBT water supply. They're also hoping for several of those 15-inch storms, or even better, a nice heavy snowstorm on the western slope, so that will help their water supply. And that's all that I have for you tonight. So if you have any questions, both Ken and I and Dale are here to answer them.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. Can you go back one slide?
You bet.
Just want to get it clear. Number 7, let grass grow longer before you cut it. So when I tell my wife that, you were going to back me up, along with all husbands and wives who are responsible for cutting the grass. Right? That's what I'm hearing. I am saving the environment if I go home and tell my wife, honey, I'm saving the environment. I'm not cutting the grass.
We're behind you on that effort.
Excellent. So noted.
I must have been clairvoyant because last summer I ripped out all my grass and put in artificial pet turf, so that's the best solution. Go ahead, Dale.
One thing I want to let the council know too, the preparation that we're doing throughout the department in case we need to move into route level 1, it takes a lot of work. You can't just sort of wake up one day and decide tomorrow we're going to trigger that. There's a huge amount of preparatory work, everything from our predominantly in the parks and golf course areas where we have a lot of municipal watering going on and along the right-of-ways. And the good news is I think the staff is well ahead of the curve on that. What I'm understanding is that we could move into that mandatory reduction on city uses quite expediently if we needed to. One of the things I'm considering is that we may move in that direction even before we make a formal declaration for a lot of reasons. One is to show the public that city staff and city municipal uses are taking the lead, and to demonstrate that it can be done. And because they really do look at, frankly, what we do first. And so we're mulling that over. We're not saying tonight that we're going to have to go there, but I think it might be a good strategy to show our customers that we're doing it first, and we'll make it work. So,
thank you, Dale. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Bill. Great presentation. I guess it's time for. Can I take a break?
Pray for rain.
Oh yeah, pray for rain. Pray for rain. Rain or snow. So next is final call public invited to be heard. Is there anyone who'd like to speak at the council at this time?
Still Bob Norris, still live at 532 Ryder Ridge Drive. Because of timing, I didn't realize what the council sessions was, and the income protection bill, which is what I talked about before, hearing is coming up fairly soon. I would like to ask council to instruct their lobbyists to support this bill. I'm glad to ask any questions about it, and because I was listening to the discussion, I'd suggest two things. One is with regard to the drought information, to use Lillet, because you'll reach a whole another group of people, and we can always provide information through the Boulder County Latino Coalition and the St. Vrain Community Council, and I'd be glad to facilitate that.
Great. Thank you. I guess it's time for mayor and council comments. Councilmember Finley.
I have a couple of things. First of all, tomorrow is Councilmember Zamori's birthday, so I think that we should sing him happy birthday. I'll begin if you'll all join me. Are you ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alex. Happy birthday to you. Yay. And then, of course, we have to have a business of the week, as is my custom. I will have it on good authority that a person who lives in South Longmont should try Logan's Gym on South Pratt. They're open 24/7. Might be a good Valentine's present. Get somebody a gift certificate to a gym. Valentine's Day is coming right up, so you need to get on that, everybody. And if you are so inclined, get a gift certificate to Logan's Gym.
Councilmember Ellison.
Yes, thank you. Since we're not going to be meeting on camera next week, I'd just like to bring up a couple of community items. First of all, the Historic Preservation Commission is doing their first ever historic fair on February 23rd from 9:30 in the morning to 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon. And the title is Historic Longmont, Everyone's Story. And they're going to have representatives from the Colorado History Center, the Denver Public Library, which has a very innovative history program that they have linked in, and also the person that does Longmont History and Mystery Tours. And you can do an RSVP to Julie Conde at the city, which is 303-651-8764, or you can look her up, Julie Conde, on the directory. Excuse me. Oh, it's at the Longmont Museum, 400 Quail Road. And then the next item, which I promised the organizer of Chinese New Year, Rita Liu, is part of the Asian Pacific Association of Longmont. They're presenting the Chinese New Year celebration. It's the Year of the Snake. And again, that's February 23rd. It's going to be from 2 to 5 at Silver Creek High School. The event is free and open to the public. There'll be performances beginning at 2 o'clock and a lot of other information. I imagine you'll see some posters up. I know there's a website for the Asian Pacific Alliance of Longmont. So those are my 2 plugs.
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I guess it's payback time. This coming Friday is Councilman Finley's birthday. So join me in singing happy birthday to her.
21.
Yeah, 105 to 21. I win.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Robbie. Happy birthday to you.
We should have a calendar.
All right. Any other comments from council? Councilmember Bagler again.
Thank you, Mayor.
You
You're
jump in.
going to say something else tonight. Come on. I just wanted to welcome the Scouts. I'm a big supporter and fan of Scouting. And whenever I see a Scout troop that's here, now granted, the meeting was short, but you actually made it the entire way through council. And I think that's a first for any Scout troop. And so I know that Scouts is in the news a lot lately, and regardless of what happens, I'm a big supporter of the Scouts. And thanks for coming tonight and getting to know what's going on here. And I presume working on your citizenship in the community badge, right? All right, so welcome.
Great. Okay, City Manager, any additional remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
All right, City Attorney.
No comments, Mayor.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.